Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Today on the show, I interview Regina, author of 1,000 Whispers from Within. We chat all about writing, creativity, and what it's like to live in France. So welcome to the show, Regina.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. We met at a recent, I guess you would call it a workshop. It was like life-changing. It was so nice. And now
Yes.
I still get to check in with you and learn all about your new book.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to share it with you.
So let's talk a little bit about your past first. You were not always a writer or a coach or a retreat host or a speaker. You were working in big pharma before. Talk about that path of working in pharmaceuticals to living in France and writing books.
Oh my gosh, yes. There is a little bit of history here. I really, started out on a conventional, traditional path because of my upbringing. I am Chinese Indonesian, born in Indonesia and immigrated to the US when I was 3. And we very much just kind of grew up in that mentality with, my parents' upbringing and our culture to really strive to live the American dream and to be successful. And that really meant focusing on a career that was around stability and security and something that would guarantee a good life. And that meant making good money in at least, my parents' eyes. And so it was, kind of made known, not necessarily directly, but just kind of through how, parents raise kids like, oh, this is what success looks like, by cherishing and celebrating other people who did certain things, right? So if you focused on healthcare or being a doctor or, an engineer or lawyer, that was something that was prized. And so that's the path that I took. And I studied really hard in school and went to did my undergrad in California and then went to pharmacy school in San Francisco and then did residency training in Nebraska and then landed in a healthcare profession as a clinical pharmacist treating patients, ran my own clinic for a medical group. And then after 10 years, I moved on into the pharmaceutical industry where I was in the non-sales side and really working on educating healthcare professionals about drug treatment options. And so I did that for another 10 years. And the pandemic hit in 2020 and things shifted. So that's just kind of my history of really striving to live that American dream, but ended up realizing that I was very unhappy and dissatisfied in what I had created. And so I had to do some big shifts and big changes.
Yeah. That is crazy to do all that schooling and all that career. And then it's amazing that you were able to make that shift because so many people just stay unhappy and you weren't willing to live like that, which I think is a great intro into your book because I know your book, 1,000 Whispers from Within, a big part of that book was losing your mother. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. My mother and I were very close and she actually developed liver cancer in 2017 and she passed away in 2018. And that was a big life-changing moment, obviously because, of her passing, but also at the same time, she had actually forbade me to practice the thing that actually lit me up, which was my intuition. And I discovered that I had, psychic abilities, which ran in our family. And so when she passed away, she that really just opened this gateway for me to figure out how to connect with her, because I always knew deep down that we would always be connected and I could communicate with her. And so when she passed away in 2018, I was put on this path to discover how to communicate with past loved ones. And I discovered Lori Lynn Jackson, read her books, and learned how to communicate with my mom after she passed. And I learned the universal language of signs and was able to communicate with her. And that really opened the doors to the metaphysical world. And once you open it, you can't close it, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that really opened up my journey to discovering what my passion is, which is really tuning in to my intuition, to hearing and listening to guidance, and to being able to guide other people as well.
I love that. And it's so brave of you to choose this new path after, like we said, you went through all this other career, this life, and then, I mean, so different from what you were doing before. Talk a little bit about how your mother's passing and your corporate layoff came close together. How did grief crack open your spirituality?
And at the same time, the company I was working for was going through this massive reorg and was laying off a lot of people. And my whole team got dismantled. So it was very much grieving the loss of my mother, and then grieving the loss of the entire department and team and my director and my colleagues. Everyone was shuffled. Some people were laid off. So that grief between losing my mom in 18 and then going through the department reshuffle and the layoffs around me at the same time in 18 and 19 was just really a challenging time. And I was working with a spiritual life coach, and she helped me to discover, I went down the path of studying Seed of the Soul with Gary Zukav. And that really helped me to understand my life's path. And the grief was really a turning point to let go of my existing environment, my existing role, to let go of all of the things that I had built so that I could make space for the next thing that was calling me. So while it was quite painful, it was very much the necessary pivoting point for me to delve into the next thing that was calling me.
And what does success look like for you now?
Oh, success is having the freedom to live the life that is calling me. Success is waking up in the morning without alarm and to be able to create my own schedule of morning pages, writing 3 pages longhand in my journal, creating, writing, being able to work and live from anywhere in the world, being able to be my own boss, and being able to do this side by side with my husband, who is also creative. He's self-employed as a cinematographer, and so he makes these beautiful films. And to be able to live this life with him from a creative space as entrepreneurs, it's quite scary, but it's also so invigorating, excuse me, to live this life of freedom and to be able to fight tooth and nail for it. I think that's what success is.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we have the same definition of success.
Yeah.
So talk about writing your first book, 1,000 Whispers from Within. You've never written a book before. Like, what was that process like? How were you able to get started? I know so many people dream of writing a book.
Yeah, Crystal, oh my gosh. Writing this book has been calling me since 2017 while I was still working in the pharmaceutical industry. And it's such a dream to be able to have this book come out next month. I admit it was not easy, but I would say that never give up on doing it. I started writing it in 2020. I wrote 70,000 words in 2020. And then I went back and read it, and it was such a snoozer. I was still writing like a medical person, and I didn't yet know how to tell my story. I tried 2 more times after that. So it was like 3 attempts, 2020, 2021, 22. I even went to Hawaii to like give myself space to write. And I kept failing. I kept getting stuck. I would start and I would stop. I tried different writing courses. I tried fitting my story into the hero's journey template, and it wasn't working. And so in 2023, I gave up. I took a pause, and I'm like, I'm just going to go celebrate turning 50. I'm going to celebrate our 11-year wedding anniversary in France. And so I paused in 2023 until the universe in 2024 connected me with Sonia Choquette. And she's the queen of intuition. You guys can check her out on Instagram. But she coached me into learning how to download my stories. And so what I figured out was that I was trying to write my stories into a template. And what I needed to do was just to get all the stories out on the paper, which I did, 67,000 words, 5 months in France, in the French countryside in our home there. I wrote over the summer. I got all the stories out. And then a hybrid publishing agency reached out to me. And it was exactly everything that I wanted in a partnership. I wanted to be able to own my intellectual property, but I wanted professional help to put a book together. And that's what a hybrid publishing agency does. And so I went with Manuscripts Press. Everything fell into place. My spirit guides guided me to sign with them because I had a 15-minute call with the founder of the publishing house. And after the call, I was reflecting on what he shared with me and what they would offer, and everything checked the box of what I needed. And I was cleaning the car and I was thinking about him in France, and I got ringing in my right ear, which is a signal for my spirit guides that it's a heck yes. When it's a ringing in my left ear, it's a stop what you're doing, or it's a no or pause. But I had this profound ringing in my right ear as I was thinking about Eric, the founder of Manuscripts Press. And I just knew it was a heck yes. So I signed with them. And then here we are putting the book together. And it's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of work, but I always have these pinch me moments because I was working with all these different editors, and they helped me put the book together, from the stories to the outline to what is the theme of the book, what is the message we're trying to deliver to help people, and then just getting all the stories outlined and then doing the revisions, editing. And then you were actually one of my beta readers that gave me feedback on the book, and that was absolutely wonderful. And then now we're in layout, and that's just putting the book, the manuscript into layout form. And here we are. It's going to be published in February next month, and it's been a 2-year journey since then. So
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I'm tickled. I'm pinching myself. I'm having outer body experiences. Like, is this really happening? Because it's been on my mind since 2017. And then I didn't start until 2020. And then here we are in 2026. So to your listeners, if you feel a book calling you, just start writing down your stories and don't necessarily force it into a certain template if that's not working for you. And then piece the book together. It doesn't have to be perfect all at once. And don't give up. Keep going, because it's possible to get your book published into the hands of readers who need your story.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I felt so lucky to be a beta reader, and I loved your story. It was so beautiful, and the connection with your mother, and just being brave enough to go forward, and also like moving to France and finding this countryside home. I mean, talk a little bit about that too. It's such an amazing place you have right outside of Paris.
Yeah. Oh, Crystal, that story's in the book, but I'm going to share a little bit about it here. My husband is French, born and raised. And when we first started dating, I just kept feeling this nudge that I wanted to go see where he was raised. And he kept telling me, no, I don't know. I don't know who lives there now. I think it would be so awkward to go back and visit. And this was back in 2011 when we started dating, and we met on Match.com. I just kept nudging him like every year because we would go back to France, and he just kept saying no to it. But eventually, what happened was in 2019, his sister, who lives in Paris, they were on vacation in August, and they were about to rent a car, and her partner, Florent, was going to the rental car company with a taxi cab driver, and they started talking, and he was just asking the cab driver, like, are you from around here? And the cab driver was saying that he grew up in Vandelicourt, and my brother-in-law was like, my wife, Marion, actually grew up in Vandelicourt. And the cab driver was like, wait a minute, does she have a brother named Mathieu? And he's like, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. He lives in San Francisco. And the cab driver was like, oh my gosh, we played soccer when we were children. We played soccer together. And that's how it all started when the cab driver said, did you know that Madame C is selling the property of Sih-Meynier? My former father-in-law, who's passed away already, I never had the opportunity to meet him, was famous in France. He was a talk show radio host in the 70s and 80s. And so, he's part of French culture. And so the cab driver knew about Sih-Meynier and basically told my brother-in-law, did you know that the home is for sale? And it turned out that Madame C was the buyer of the home 30 years prior, who bought it from Mathieu's parents. And they needed to sell the home. And she was looking for my sister-in-law, because when my sister-in-law was 16, when her parents sold the home to Madame C, my sister-in-law was really heartbroken. And Madame C said, if I ever sell the property, I will come find you, and I will give you first right of refusal if you want to buy the home back. And so here we were in 2019, and she was looking for Mathieu's family, and she couldn't find them. And the cab driver was the one who delivered the message, because the cab driver was Madame C's driver in Vandelicourt and in Compiègne when he would go and pick her up from the train station, because she lived in Paris, and she would go to this countryside home outside of Compiègne. It's just a 40-minute train ride north of Paris. She would come to this home on weekends, and her family would spend the summers there. And so she would use this taxi driver, and he was the one that told us the home was for sale. We went out and visited the home in August of 2019. All the details are in my memoir because it's so magical. The universe had sent this home back to us, and we didn't know it, but we were headed into the pandemic. I was laid off in 2020. My husband's business was completely shut down. But because when we visited the home in 2019, I fell in love with it. There was no way we could not try to get the home back. But here we were in the pandemic, and on paper, it looks crazy, right? Like, you have no income. Like, I'm laid off. I did receive a small severance package, but it was small. My husband's company is completely shut down because of the pandemic. And here we were telling Madame C, we are going to buy the home back. And so, your audience are going to just have to read the rest of the story in the book. But, it's something that is very special to us. And the universe called us to this property. And we just figured out how to do it through the help of the universe and spirit guides and intuitive downloads. And now I run retreats at the property. So that's the story.
That's incredible. I mean, what a crazy story, and like more reason to read your book.
Yes,
But
yes.
holy cow, how insane is that? So definitely, guys, pick up her book, because then you can finish the story. 1,000 Whispers from Within. It will be out because this is coming out in March, so you'll be able to pick up her book now. But let's talk a little bit about your intuitive decision framework. You help people connect with their intuition. Can you walk us through your 4-step framework?
Yes. So actually, the framework is really around getting folks to feel comfortable in tuning into their inner whisper, right? So the first step really is I try to get folks, and I talk about this in the book, is to get folks to find time and space. And if folks are really busy running around in their career or in their home life or whatever it is that's demanding their time and space, it's really difficult to connect to that intuitive guidance. So the key is to feel relaxed. And in order to feel relaxed, you have to be able to ensure that you have security and safety, right? You need to be able to meet your basic needs of keeping the lights on. So whatever that takes, it's really important to be able to identify if you're not happy in your current role or whatever you're doing, to be able to figure out, well, what can you do to transition yourself to have enough time and space for yourself to tune in, but to feel comfortable enough to do so. So I help folks figure out how to create a transitional bridge where they feel comfortable enough with keeping the lights on, to paying their bills. So that's really the first step, is to be able to do that, because you need to be able to tune in to those inner whispers. So then I teach people what that sounds like, right? So we have different clairs. Clairs is really just clarity around sensing things that you cannot see. So I have clairaudience, which is being able to hear whispers that are not of my own, but sounds like my own voice. So some people believe that if they're hearing their intuition, or if they're hearing spirit guides or the universe, that the voice sounds like this big foreign booming voice outside of yourself. And that's not the case. Marianne DeMarco, my intuitive psychic medium coach, was instrumental in training me early in my career. And it's not that. It's your own voice, but the energy and frequency in which it comes through is different from your own voice. And that's how you know, through feeling it, that it's not coming from yourself, but something beyond you, from source. And so I teach folks the different ways to hear this, and the way the messages can come through. Some people have claircognizance. I have that as well. It's just this inner knowing. You just know. You don't know how. Like, I'll give you an example where I was going to meet a girlfriend, a really close girlfriend of mine, for lunch one afternoon. And I was getting ready in the bathroom. And all of a sudden, I just knew she was pregnant. And sure enough, I met her for lunch and she's like, I'm pregnant. So you just know without knowing how you know, the message just comes. Clairsentience, you just get the tingles. You're thinking about something and then you get these tingling feelings come through your body, these sensations of warmth, and it just comes across your entire body. So that's clairsentience. And so there's a lot of folks in my network, especially coming from the corporate world, they don't know about this. They know about their five senses, but they don't know about their sixth sense. And your sixth sense comes with all these different clairs. And so I walk folks through that. And then the next step really is really knowing that you can only hear one narrative at a time, right? You can't hear the inner knowing. You can't hear the clairaudience, the inner whispers, or feel things when you're scared. So if you're constantly scared and worried, or you're in panic mode, or you're worried about the future and you don't know how it's going to turn out, you are constantly listening to your inner critic, or your, what I call egon, or your ego narrative. And those worries and fears, you're not good enough. What are people going to think? You're going to be judged. You're going to be rejected. You're not going to be loved. You're going to be disrespected, especially from the corporate world, when you have an identity of I have this position, I have this role, I have this title, and this makes me great, and this makes me respected. So when you start thinking about maybe moving away from this or changing your identity, it freaks out your spirit, right? It freaks out your soul, and your ego narrative is like, wait, what are we doing? This is not safe. Then that becomes a blocker of hearing your inner voice, your inner critic, or sorry, your not your inner critic. Your inner critic becomes a blocker. Your ego becomes a blocker of hearing the inner wisdom, of hearing your spirit guides, and hearing the universe speak to you. So I teach practical tools on how to remove those blocks so that you can hear the messages that are always coming to you. They're always there. It's like going to your house where your higher soul self lives and checking your mailbox. There's always mail in there with messages for you. But if you are living in a lower energetic state of fear, regret, anger, hate, whatever it is, where it's low energy frequency, you're not going to your house to pick up your mail. You're always going to be blocked from picking it up, and you won't receive the messages. So I teach people how to remove those blocks and to manage that fear voice with practical exercises. And then the last thing is to be able to take inspired, aligned action. And so this is a hard thing, because when you hear the whispers, when you hear the message, when you get the download, oftentimes it's going to tell you something that's really crazy. Like when it told us to buy this house in France, I was not employed, and my husband's business was shut down. And that is a crazy message to follow. My friends were like, are you sure? All my logical friends with their pros and cons list were like, this is crazy. You're going to make a big mistake. I talk about this in the book as well, about the naysayers and how to handle people around you, because not everyone is tuned into that inner guidance. And so if you are tuned in and you are following the breadcrumbs to what lights you up, to what you're supposed to be doing, what's calling you, oftentimes it's something quite crazy. And in order to take inspired, aligned action, you have to have the courage and trust to know that you are always being led down the right, best, most successful, satisfying, sustainable path to greater good, to something that will light you up. But you need to be able to trust it, to take the leap, like how we had to purchase the house, even though I wasn't working full time for corporate, and I was trying to go into launching my consulting business. And so those are the 4 things that I teach folks how to live authentically, because living authentically means you're tuning in to the inner whispers, to source, to take inspired, aligned action to live the life that's calling you one step at a time through following the breadcrumbs.
I love that. And what are some things that people could do today to kind of silence the ego?
First, give it a name, identify it. So every time you hear it, we don't hate it. We don't put it, we're not negative towards our ego narrative. That I just want to make that clear. We love it, right? We give it love and we identify it. We just don't continue to feed it and nurture it, but we don't hate on it. So identify it. Every time you hear the inner critic, you can't do it, you're not good enough, it's going to take too long, you don't have enough money, you don't have the network to do what you want to do, just name it. So mine is Egon. I know some people call it their barking dog. I know Sonia calls it, Sonia Choquette, the barking dog. Name it whatever name you want to name it, so that it separates it from yourself. And then say no thank you to it. That's the first thing. And just say thank you so much for trying to protect us, but we're not going to go that way. We are going to follow the inner whisper. We're going to follow our higher soul self, which is our authentic self. And you're not going to take the lead. So thank you, but no thank you. And another thing that I do is I imagine it sitting in a self-soothing rocking chair in the corner with the dunce cap on itself. And I just tell it, Egon, go sit in your self-soothing rocking chair and just take care of yourself. We're not going to do this right now. And then I imagine it flipping me off from the corner rocking chair. And that just makes me laugh. And it just kind of removes its power and energy on me.
I love that. That's so funny. And yeah, it's like using humor and not hate and still being like, it's okay that you're here, but we're just going to ignore you.
Yes. Absolutely.
So what would you say to women who feel guilt for wanting more than what they have in their life or what culture told them they want?
Guilt. Yeah. Gosh, it's so easy to feel guilty to say, because a lot of women, you know, that at least in my network are quite accomplished. And so they feel like they shouldn't ask for more and that they're, you know, they should be grateful for what they have. And if you're feeling like something else is calling you, that's your authentic self nudging you and pulling you to open up that path. And that is nothing to feel guilty about because the universe and your guides want you to have it all. They want you to eat your cake. What's the saying? Crystal, eat your cake and
have your cake and eat it too.
Yes. Okay. I always get the sayings mixed up. Okay. Have your cake and eat it too. They want you to have that. So I would say that acknowledge the guilt and say, it's okay. We don't have to feel guilty. You are, just by being born and who you are, without any of the accolades, the awards, the positions, the titles, without any of that, you deserve everything your heart desires. And if it's there calling you, it means that you're in a place right now that maybe is not satisfying to your soul. And you may be feeling a little bit antsy about something else. Maybe you don't know what it is yet, but that guilt is a blocker. And so just letting that go and releasing it, because it's a lot of energy that could be used elsewhere to go and create the thing, to be able to listen to the hunches and the nudges of what's calling you. If you hear about something, this is one thing. Let me just share this example, Crystal. I'm finishing this book, right? And one might say, guys, you're writing a book, you're doing all these, you're running a retreat in May. You're doing a lot. Like you're kind of like eating the whole cake. Like this is like too much. But my inner whisper was nudging me. I was at a wine and cheese party in San Francisco not too long ago, a couple months ago. And somebody was talking to me about the Moth. Have you heard of the Moth, Crystal?
No, not at all.
It's a nonprofit organization. It started in New York decades ago, and it's about storytelling, like connecting people through storytelling. And I was at this wine and cheese party, and someone was telling me that they had won the competition at the Moth, and they got up and they told their story for 5 minutes on stage to an audience. You get randomly picked and you tell your story aligned to whatever the theme was of the month. And when I heard this, my heart just like lit up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. This is so interesting. I would love to learn more about it. So I made a mental note that I would go look it up. And of course, life got in the way. I got distracted. And then I showed up at another event. It was a UCSF, my pharma alumni event. And the coordinator of the alumni event got up on stage and said, hey, don't forget, we're doing this Moth-like event with our UCSF graduate students. Don't forget to join. And that's when I heard the Moth again. And it was a reminder from my messenger. So here's something to take note of. If you hear the same message from two different messengers, it's from your spirit guides. They're trying to message you and trying to get you to take action. And so it was a reminder for me because I had forgotten. So I went and I looked it up and I discovered that a few weeks later, they were having a Moth event in San Francisco. And one would think, okay, Regina, you're already writing your book. You're like in the final stages of writing your book. You're planning your retreat. Like, do you really need to do this other thing? Like, isn't it too much? Are you asking for too much? But the thing is, if you're being guided, they really want you to have the whole cake and more, right? And so I just followed the nudge, this thing that I could feel it. It was like, it lit me up. It made my heart feel excited. And I bought 2 tickets. I went to the event December 16th. I was being called there. The theme was, Crystal, get this, the theme was how to leave your 9 to 5. Wow. And that is what my book is about. And I was like, I have to go. And so I bought the tickets. I quickly wrote an outline of what I would say if I got picked. And so they only have 10 slots during the event for folks to get up on stage to tell their story. And so I'm like, okay, if I get picked, this is what I would talk about. And so I literally changed my flight. I was in Southern California because I live and work from San Francisco, Southern California, and France. My dad is in Southern California. I was with my dad and I'm like, hey, Dad, I need to go to this event. So we need to change our plane ticket to come home a day early to San Francisco. I was bringing him up here for the holidays. And so he's like, yeah, no problem. So I'm literally writing this outline a few days before the event. I fly home to San Francisco. The event was that evening. I'm literally practicing what I would say. You know, I practiced it like 3 times because you're not allowed to have notes. You're not allowed to have slides or anything. And so I go to the event and I don't know how it works. So I go to to the reception area. I'm like, what should I do? I'm interested in sharing my story. And they're like, okay, just go to the stage, fill out the form. I fill out the form. I'm sitting in the audience and, they start picking names out of the hat and they're calling people up and they're telling their 5-minute story about, how they left their 9 to 5 or how they ended a long-term relationship. That was the other theme. And so I'm sitting there and I'm feeling really nervous in the audience. And I'm just like, what? Okay, I'm talking to my team now and I'm like, guys, I'm sitting here and I don't know if my name's going to be picked and I can't relax. So can you just tell me what number I'm going to be picked to be on stage? Because I know you called me here for a reason. And I want to be able to relax and listen to all these other stories of people on stage. And so I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I hear 999 and I'm like, okay. So they're going to do 5 stories, 5 people, and then they're going to take a 20-minute break and then they're going to do 5 more stories. So all I heard was what I sensed was I'm going to be going after the break. So just relax and listen to these 5 amazing stories and then go to the intermission and enjoy that and connect with people. And sure enough, I did that. And then after the break, we sat back down. And the 7th person went up and then she puts her name or her hand in the bag and she pulls out the next application and she goes, okay, I can say the first name, but I don't think I'm going to butcher the last name. And I knew. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's me. And she goes, Regina, Sih-Meynier. And she said it right. She didn't butcher it. So I go up on stage and I tell my story. And so the point of this is that I just want to encourage people that if you are doing amazing things, but you're feeling dissatisfied or something else is calling you, there is a reason. And that guilt is just your ego narrative getting in there, your inner critic. And you just have to say no, thank you to it. And then answer the call. If you're being called to go on stage or to write your book or to leave your job and start a consulting business or whatever it is, just take the first right step. And there is nothing to be ashamed of for wanting more. It is your birthright without all the accolades or anything that you've earned in this lifetime already. It's not about any of that. It's just you as your human self. It is your birthright to go and pursue whatever is tugging at your heartstrings.
I love that. I think that's such a beautiful note to end on. Your birthright to be happy.
Yes.
We don't need any other things than that.
Yes, absolutely.
So where can people pick up your book, 1,000 Whispers from Within, and learn more about you?
Yes, thank you. Well, it's definitely going to be on Amazon. and of course in local bookstores in the US, especially California, but I'm looking at getting it into Barnes and Noble and other bookstores as well. But that's all being planned out now. And so by the time your listeners hear this, they can just go to my website at, which I'm sure you'll have listed, but it's my name. It's reginasih-meynier.com. And if you do /book, that'll just take you right to my book page and you can see where you can order the book. And then I am working on getting the book into France, but more to come on that because eventually it will be translated from English to French because we have a lot of family and friends in France in our community there. So, but that's still being worked out. So I would just say go to my website to see the latest update on where they can order the book.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. And I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for having me. And I feel like my spirit team has connected me with you. It wasn't random that we sat next to each other at that workshop event in Paris.
I feel the same way. It was great.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.